All right.
Welcome to the King Connections podcast. I'm your host, King, and today I'm joined by founder and serial entrepreneur and social impact investor, David Wagstaff. How you doing today, David?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you for having me here today, King.
Thank you for your investment of time and energy with joining me today. One of the key questions I always like to begin the conversation off with, just to really kind of set the context, is what would you say your spiritual energy level number is? And that's a zero number range being zero being life sucks to 10 being life is awesome. Where would you say you are in this moment right now?
I just feel awesome. So I guess that's a 10. So I feel really great.
Excellent, excellent. And the reason I asked that question, I'm a firm believer that, like Einstein says, that everything is energy and energy is everything. And I've learned that when I have meetings or events, that when I ask that question, if I get people to answer like, two or three or four, then it's best not to have the meeting because they're not going to be engaged. They're going to be adversarial and they're just not going to be present. But when people say 8 through 10, they're usually going to be present. They're going to be, and we have very interesting conversations. So thank you for indulging me with that question.
Absolutely.
Well, to get things started, I know you have a very impressive bio, and I'm definitely looking forward to get into it. I know you've accomplished several things in your life. So I'm really curious, what do you see as your purpose in life?
So purpose is interesting because you can recreate it over time. I see myself as not having one overwhelming purpose from the time I was born on. But for sure, loving son was a bit that I recently really experienced. Like I was always a son to my parents. But as they got older and I had a chance to take care of them, that was a purpose for that period of time to really be there with them. Right now, I have some elderly aunts. Being there for them is part of my purpose. And then my broader purpose is making a difference to social impact entrepreneurs all over the world. And that's probably the one that you're more interested in today. But it's making a difference for those people that are making a difference in the world. And that's what we're about. And it lights me up and has me go, woo. Really excited.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, my next question is, the term conscious leader gets thrown out quite a bit. And a lot of people use a definition for different things. So I'm always willing and curious to ask the person who I believe is a conscious leader how themselves would define a conscious leader. So with that being said, how do you define a conscious leader?
So for me, a conscious leader is really someone who is aware. It's almost definitionally that's the case, right? They're someone aware of not just themselves, but of the world at large, in the differences that we make in the world through our actions, through showing our team some love, through showing the world some love, caring about issues of sustainability, caring about what happens outside of ourselves. So I think I'll leave it there. I could get slightly into the controversial side and just get into, kind of a current world event. But that's basically what conscious leaders are, is that they're aware of what consequences they're causing and they're doing it for a benefit outside of themselves. Although just one caveat on that, I learned once in a class that I really struggled with is that all humans always do everything in their own self-interest. I struggled with that. I hated that. It almost sounds like the opposite of a conscious leader, right? Is
Right.
it we're doing it for our own self-benefit? And I'm like, well, then why would a soldier throw himself on a bomb or herself on a bomb or whatever? Why would someone do that? And the answer is because it's in their own self interest because they see themselves as that kind of person. They see themselves as someone that wants to make a difference in the world. And
Mm.
so, me, a conscious leader is someone who sees themselves who wants to make a difference in the world, and they take actions consistent with that, such that it is to their own benefit, but it also benefits the world at large.
Hmm. Interesting perspective. Definitely got to think about that. But thank you for sharing.
It
Now,
challenged me, it really challenged me. And that's why it stuck with me because I'm like, I don't like that. But my dad's such a good person. How could he possibly be doing it just in his own self interest? But that's his view of who he is in the world, or at the time he was.
absolutely, absolutely. Now, again, like I said, you have a very impressive bio, and I know you're doing a lot of great things right now. And I'm really curious to know, of all the things that you've accomplished, seen, experienced, what would you say that you're most grateful for?
So I looked at this question as you presented it ahead of time, and I started thinking about it, and I could definitely talk about all kinds of things in here. I am grateful for so much. I realize that we as humans have very, very little control over much of what we think we do, right? We get good grades in school and we take credit for that. And there is an aspect of working hard that we have, but there's a natural innate intelligence that we don't have any control over. That's how we're born in the world. And so there's a lot of things that we can't control. But overall, I am grateful, very, very grateful for. I had a good family growing up, and I still have a good family, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful for my own happiness. I'm grateful that I can enjoy life every day. I walk down the street and I see something that makes me smile, a piece of art, or someone holding hands, or whatever it is, and it makes me happy. So many of these things. Sorry, for some reason my phone is really, really talking to me in the background. But these are some of the things I'm really, really grateful for. So I'm grateful for my own outlook. Sorry about that. I know it's kind of rude. Hopefully it stops doing it. Doesn't normally do that.
No, no problem. No problem. Thank you for that answer. Now, my next question would be, what would you say are three behavioral traits that you possess that you would use to describe yourself?
So I am very grateful and I'm very appreciative. And maybe because of the previous question, I'm present to that. But that is a characteristic of me is I'm grateful to my parents, my family, for the world at large, for many of the things that they contribute. I love my team. I'm very, very grateful to them for what they provide for me every day and helping me and us achieve our vision of what we want to make a difference in the world. At the core, everyone would have described me for much of my life as highly analytical, and I am highly analytical. I like solving problems, and so that's part of my characteristic, part of my trait of who I am. And I tend to be very optimistic and happy. And so these are three key characteristics of that I think of as myself.
Excellent. Excellent. Now, I'm curious as we're going to shift now into your business, and I love this title, but I'm curious to know what inspired you to become a chief dream maker for small businesses?
So first I'll say it's a confluence of events that causes anything in life, right? It's not just one thing that caused me to be the chief dream maker. It is partly that I had worked as an entrepreneur for so long. And I see that a lot of entrepreneurship is the dream making aspect. It is what is the difference? It's the visioning aspect of what do we want to make in the world? What is that difference? In my team, one of my roles, it seems to be more the visioning aspect. Why? Because I get excited and delighted by the vision, and it seems to be one that is enrolling to other people. So, because other people also get enrolled in that, it's a role that I've taken on not only for me and my team, but for other entrepreneurs as well. So, we'll talk a little bit more about this later, but one of the things we're doing is we're creating a framework where we can help support other leaders in developing their vision, their dream, and then they can help their team achieve that dream. And so I'm the chief dream maker because of all of that, and it lights me up and excites me, and it's fun.
And I love that too. Like I said, I love that title, and it's definitely welcoming to meet someone like you. That's why I really love doing these podcasts and meet individuals who have a similar alignment as I do. And as we continue to talk about things you're involved in the business world, this is a question that, seems it has an obvious answer, but I like to have each person who I believe fits this characteristic or definition define it. So, with that being said, how would you define a social impact investor?
So a social impact investor, from my perspective, is someone who takes a view of the impact that we're having in the world and invests with that as a primary consideration. I am a believer, sorry, I keep getting all these distracting things here. So I am a believer that you don't have to be poor to make a difference in the world. And so what I look to invest in are those businesses that make a difference in the world and also have a good probability of being successful financially. So for me, a social impact investor is someone who looks for businesses that are making a difference in a positive way around the world, and they have a potential to have a positive return on investment. Now, I do care a lot about issues, so sometimes I'm willing to just take a bet Like this person, I believe in what they're doing. I don't know yet if it's going to have a positive return or not, but because I believe in what they're doing and what they've demonstrated they're up to in the world, I'll take a gamble on that and I'll make an investment in that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Now, with some of the investments you've made, some of the businesses you funded, what would you say, founded, I'm sorry, what would you say, is there a project you completed that brought you the most fulfillment out of all the things you've done?
So the current project I'm on is giving me the most fulfillment of any project I've worked on, in part because we have an extraordinary team, in part because I'm just really lit up by what we're doing, making a difference in the world. And I believe it has a bigger impact than anything else I've done, bigger potential impact. So that's what I'm probably most currently fulfilled on and most excited about. But when you put it in the historical perspective of what I've completed, mid-career, I had a really great career. I was doing things well. When I look back and said, do I have any regrets in life? I believe in living a regret-free life. And as I look back, I really respected people who had done Peace Corps and activities like that that were not for financial gain, but really to make a difference in the world. So I took on a project. It just, first I started thinking about that. So I developed kind of my own vision for it. And then it materialized as things sometimes randomly seems to happen. One afternoon, a guy called me and said, hey, we're recruiting for a CFO at a nonprofit, at a social services organization called Action Wellness now. It was called Action AIDS at the time. And we talked for an hour and he said, okay, you got the job, you're hired, and I was the number 2 person in this organization of about 75 employees making a difference for thousands of people who were impacted by HIV and AIDS. And that role was very challenging, but it was also deeply rewarding and fulfilling. They were having a lot of financial difficulty. So when I talked to the team members on Monday and said, what will I expect from this job? I remember the senior financial person saying, well, you're going to be talking to vendors a lot and telling them why they haven't been paid. I'm like, ooh, that doesn't sound like so much fun.
Right.
Over the next year, we transformed the organization to being profitable and non-profitable, but still having a positive net asset value growth. And we did things in lots of ways. We made a difference internally on our expense structure. Some of those things were very challenging, but I did those things with heart. When we had to let people go, I felt it. I cried. I was sad. But sometimes we had to make those difficult decisions so the organization could succeed. And we did those things, and people were satisfied, and we set them up for success. And then we also brought in new revenue at the same time. And so ultimately, we made a difference for people that were living with HIV and AIDS. Just one example of that is one of the services we offered was perinatal care. And I had no idea when I joined them that you could prevent transfer of HIV/AIDS from a mom to a baby through perinatal care. That to me was remarkable. If you think about saving one child a lifetime of HIV and AIDS through better care, that makes everything the program did, the $5 million budget, seem, inconsequential in return. And so that's what we did. We made a difference for people in the world. And in this case, it happened to be people who were living with HIV and AIDS.
Absolutely. That's a remarkable story. Thank you for telling me. I didn't know that myself. So I just learned something new. So thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
Now, I'm curious, this is going to be a 2-part question. Your company, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I mispronounced it incorrectly, Eprenz?
Eprenz is correct.
So what I'm curious about, please define the title and the name Eprenz and kind of the mission. You alluded to a little bit earlier, but I want you to kind of go a little bit more into that. And then the second part of the question is, what are your thoughts about co-creating with others to achieve a higher purpose? Because I know that Eprenz has a higher purpose.
Okay, so yep, I hear multiple questions in there. So Eprenz, the name derived from looking for something that was unique. We had another name, entrepreneursnet.net, and it confused people. They weren't sure .net, .net, .com, and so on and so forth. So we as a team spent a good bit of time thinking about a name that represented entrepreneurship. And Eprenz represents it. It isn't exactly the same. It's short, it's our own, it's unique. And so that's kind of how we derive the name Eprenz. But what it actually represents is making a meaningful difference to 100,000 social impact entrepreneurs all over the world, regardless of their differences, regardless of their gender identity, caste in society, skin color, wealth status, anything else that could be an advantage or a disadvantage. And that's really what we're about. And the way that we're doing that ties into the last part of your question, which is co-creating. So we, over the last couple of years, we put on hundreds and hundreds of hours of events. We had, guest speakers, people who were entrepreneurs doing things in the world. We had social impact speakers come in, and we did lots and lots of programs. But it felt to me that those programs in and of themselves were not going to transform from failure to success the results for many social impact entrepreneurs. And we know that in general, business and large, 70 to 90% of entrepreneurs fail, despite putting in massive amounts of hours, 60 hours a week, 70 hours a week. Entrepreneurs put in their life savings, they put in their heart and soul into their businesses, and yet still so many fail. And so as we looked at the event platform that we had developed, and it was successful, we had good events throughout the year, many, many events. We sort of think about how do you really, really make a difference for entrepreneurs? And my personal experience is that over the years, the thing that really, really makes a difference tends to be more one-on-one sessions, deeply getting to know the entrepreneurs, seeing what they're up to, and then understanding their business enough to guide them. Many entrepreneurs, including social impact entrepreneurs, have a particular skill or something they're bringing to the world. Maybe they've developed an app, but they may not understand marketing or they may not understand finance. So what we looked at is when we do one-on-one, we can make a big difference. But I also didn't have the capacity to, hire 1,000-person team of consultants or 3,000-person team to do one-on-one. So we built a financial model and a business model that works where we can guide just a small number of leaders into them leading teams of coaches and consultants, which can then make a difference on a one-on-one basis with entrepreneurs everywhere, social impact entrepreneurs. Collectively, we believe in the next 2 years, we will have the framework fully in place with over 60 social impact leaders making a difference for 100,000 entrepreneurs all over the world. And when we make that difference for 100,000, maybe this just gets kind of crazy numbers, but we believe we'll make a difference for over 10 million people. And we'll set that foundation in place in the next 2 years.
Love that. Applaud that. Definitely want to look at ways I can definitely work with you on co-creating that, bring that into reality.
And it is all co-creation, I should say, right? Because we aren't doing all of that. We're co-creating with other leaders, and that's what we're doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, with all the things that you do, you just said quite a bit there. That's a pretty audacious goal. And I definitely love big, as they talk about wigs, wildly possible goals. Not possible, but forget what the I stands for at this time. But I'm curious to know, as you deal with life and you just go through this business mindset, entrepreneur mindset, what do you do in your life that brings you fulfillment outside of business?
So what brings me fulfillment outside of business is just making a difference for people. That's true. It permeates everything I do. Making a difference for other people brings me joy, happiness, excitement, love, and fulfillment. So it feels almost the same to me, like my life collapses together in some ways, as doing the same thing no matter which hat I'm wearing. So when I'm with my aunts aged 96 and 87, what I'm doing is there with them, helping to do the things they need to be able to enjoy their life to the fullest. And at 87, my aunt just came back from Europe. She's doing the things that lights her up and excites her. And by me being where I am, providing support to her, it gives me the opportunity to feel fulfilled in a deeper way than anything else that I know. Money doesn't provide that deep fulfillment. My other aunt, 96, she needs a little bit more support these days. So I'm literally 20 minutes away from both of them. I chose to be 20 minutes away because it makes a difference in how I feel. So I personally feel better as a result of helping to take care of them. So in other spaces, I'm interacting with a lot of people because it's a new city. I've only been here for 6 months. The way I interact with people, no matter who they are or where they are, is I'm interacting with people of all ages, regardless of their business background, since this is a non-business question, right? And just trying to be there for them and figure out how can I make a difference for them. There was someone who was, I don't know, 24-year-old, 26-year-old, I don't know how old he was the other day. And he said, he wanted someone to come into his life and join him on his journey. And so I asked him, well, how's your journey? He said, it's boring, it's lousy, it's not exciting. And I said, well, why don't you change that? And so what we did is we started to create what would his life look like if he could make a difference for 100,000 people? What would he like to do? What would be those things that he would like to take on? What would be the things that would make a difference? And by virtue of him doing that, what I suggested to him is that anything is available to him in his life that he might want. If he can find a way to have a vision that excites and delights other people, and they're enrolled in him getting it, when that happens, he has anything for his life. So no longer is it a boring journey. All of a sudden, it's an exciting journey because it's one he chose, he created, he visioned. Now that gets into the business space, but it doesn't have to be business. This is the thing: is it's creating something for other people so that they feel fully fulfilled in living the life that they love.
Absolutely. Powerful. Now, we all make about maybe hundreds of decisions per day, thousands, hundreds of thousands in a lifetime. So I'm curious to know, has there been one decision that you've made that has been the most significant and most meaningful in your life?
So you were kind enough to send some of these questions ahead of time. When I saw this one, I had to smile because it would seem like there could be so many things. But I'm going to point to a program I participated in. It's called the Landmark Forum. And I don't know if you've ever heard of it or not, but it's a
I have.
program. And to me, it is probably the single thing that has had the biggest impact on the trajectory of my life and given me the most fulfillment. So, we talked about earlier, I mentioned, the difference, my family makes. So when I took the program, the situation with my mom was, it was fine. If you'd asked me what my relationship with my mom was, I would have said, it's good, it's fine. I call her every week. But it really wasn't great. It was kind of going downhill. It was kind of like, I talked to her, but I didn't really listen to her anymore. And so through this program, I saw what was happening. And I was really clear in the program that I loved my mom and that she loved me no matter what. And so I called her up on Saturday afternoon of this program. I said, hey, Mom, I'm taking this program. Guess what I just realized? I realized you can be whoever you are in the world and whoever you aren't. And I love you. You're my mom. And I know you love me. She broke down into tears and said, David, I was just telling your sister I was losing you as a son. Just told her that this week. And from that time forward, I had a beautiful relationship with my mom. And in my family, we never told each other we loved each other. That was like taboo word, like it was too foreign. My parents, I never heard them tell each other they loved each other at that point in my life. And I started telling my parents every single time I talked to them, I loved them and I appreciated them. And the difference that made for them and for me was enormous. And so that program helped open that up to me, and it's had huge impact on what I've done in business as well, because I see the world with a different lens. And so even the mission I told you earlier of making a difference for social impact entrepreneurs, we just added in the last few weeks social impact entrepreneurs. We were on a mission to make a meaningful difference for 100,000 entrepreneurs. That social impact is inspired through that program.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely very familiar with Landmark. And I can see how they could have an impact on your life for sure, which is a great question, segue into my next question, which is, my business is King Connections. I love making connections of conscious leaders and helping them to connect with other people, build connection intelligent tribes, and co-create around aligned principles and purposes. So my engineering background, I realized I had to come up with some key characteristics to help me really be able to vet someone in 30 days less, how, if they're a good connection or not. Because, a lot of people say they're conscious. A lot of people claim to be driven by a higher purpose. But when you really peel back the layers, you realize they just have an agenda. So I'm curious to know, what are some of the key characteristics that you look for in establishing a connection?
So when I establish connections, so the first thing is I'm open to connecting with just about anyone. So people ask me for connection requests all the time, and I almost always say yes. It's really rare if I don't say yes, extremely rare. Can't think of the last time. But then what's interesting is I often offer them an opportunity to meet with me and for me to meet with them so that we get to know each other, build a deeper connection than just a connection on Facebook or LinkedIn or something. And when I do that, I'm amazed how many people actually don't take up the opportunity to chat with another human. Why not get to know one another? And
Mm,
it does take time. So it definitely takes time to spend time, but 15 minutes with another person, it's just like it's a beautiful thing to find out what's in common. So when I look for connections, then I listen to what are they up to in the world? Does it align with things that I'm up to in the world? And if it does, and if I can make a difference for them, then I'm more likely to continue to engage. So it doesn't have to be that I get something from it other than that I can help make a difference for them. I mentioned earlier, I used the example of the 24, 26-year-old. I don't think there's anything that I directly get from that relationship other than I get to make a difference for another person if they choose to have me make that difference. That's a generous act. If they accept my advice and they try this stuff on, that's generosity. And that's something that I would look for is, can I make a difference for them? Can they make a difference for me? Can we make a difference in the world together?
absolutely, absolutely. Now, continuing along those lines of questions, again, like I said, my goal is to really help conscious leaders who don't really have enough time to really identify who their best strategic partners are. Because as you mentioned before, when we have these wildly impossible goals, that they're definitely impossible to achieve alone. And we have to look for the right partners to work with. So helping people to determine who is the best strategic partner for them is kind of what my talent, skill, and services I provide. So I'm curious to know, who would you look at as a great strategic partner for you to kind of collaborate with?
Thanks. Maybe I went kind of off the charts on the other answer, too theoretical. So really, really great strategic partners for us are great people that we would love to connect with, are people who want to be leaders. They want to take on having a team and leading that team and making a difference in the world and be well compensated, but not as an employee, but rather as a business owner. Those are our direct contacts. Now, you also talked about strategic partners. Who are strategic partners? Strategic partners are people that can introduce us to those people that would like to make a difference in the world. It is people who do have a social purpose, people who align with who we are philosophically. It's organizations that are touching on leaders or coaches or consultants that make a difference in the world. So people actually like yourself is a great strategic partner because you're talking to people all the time that are making a difference in the world. And some of those folks may want to join part of a movement to make a difference to social impact entrepreneurs. And that's what we're up to. So people that can connect us, it could be accountants or, attorneys or, networkers, just really, really active networkers that are out there meeting people, and they would have a sense for if the other person would be interested in becoming a leader, earning great income, and making a difference in the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Now, I notice each time that you and I have engaged, I've watched you on some other video interviews you've done, and you always bring that 8, 9, 10 positive mental state. And I'm curious to know, especially when you're dealing with so many people, so many connections, and then we have to deal with all the negative news that the media puts out there in our heads on a daily basis. So, are there any morning rituals that you use to keep yourself in its positive state of mind and shield yourself against all that negative information that's out there in the world today?
Thanks for that question too. So I don't feel fully shielded from all the negative information. I mean, I'll mention Ukraine. To me, it's mind-blowingly boggling, just amazing that someone in one country could be so self-serving as to put so many lives in jeopardy and in fact kill so many people. So I'm not immune to what's going on in the world. Sorry, I took this positive question and turned it negative, but I'm not immune to all those things and many, many more like that that are happening in the world. But what I do as part of my morning routine is I have someone on my team who's my accountability partner. He's an extraordinary individual, and he just shows up for me and continues to call me into being, continues to call me into doing the things that I know that are important. And that includes my wellness. So we sit together on a Zoom call like 5 days a week. And either I start off with meditation. And then after doing some meditation, then I do some morning exercises, routines, things like yoga, body weight exercises, things that keep me in movement, because otherwise I could sit in front of Zoom all day long without barely moving. And so he gets me in movement by just being there for me. Then I try to go for a walk every afternoon. That's not morning routine, but the morning routine includes exercise and some meditation as well. Just being present to the world and being present to what's going on and being grateful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that as well. Now, down to my last two questions. These two are, I would say, probably my favorite questions because there's so much data I get in asking these questions. I'm sorry. And so let me define this first question first to be a little more context around it. And the question is there a kin connection that you would like to meet? Now, what I mean by that is not necessarily a play on my name or my company's name, but it's a title that I've come up with or a label for an individual who's achieved a certain level of success in life, whether it's business, professional, career-wise, or personal, that if we were to connect with this individual, we can achieve even more. It would grow our business, our purposes exponentially. And not necessarily as a fan, but as a co-creator. Like, for example, mine would be Magic Johnson, not because he's a famous basketball player, but mainly because he's a business leader. He's a great mentor, and he's just a person that always looks to solve problems, to bring a lot of positive energy to every situation he's involved in. So I'll develop a process where I believe that anyone is accessible in today's world if you're aligning with them, because most people want to meet people who they're aligned with. So now, with that context being set, is there a kin connection that you would like to meet?
So, as you were speaking, I was thinking through different people that I would love to meet. So I think Bill Gates is someone that I would love to meet. He's someone that is making a difference in the world. He's someone who does have a lot of wealth, and he's using the wealth or trying to use the wealth in positive ways. So that's someone. Michelle Obama also came to my mind just because she's such an inspiration, not only in what she does, but how she carries herself and the messages she puts out in the world. But I think she's a little less business geared. So I think Bill Gates would be the person that would likely be the person that is a king connection for us. It could make a difference in our world, and therefore we can make the difference together in the world at large.
Absolutely. Thanks for answering that. Down to the last question. And I'm curious to know, with your track record of success, of what you're going through in your career as a business serial entrepreneur, has there one book, it doesn't have necessarily be a business book, but any book that you feel that you would say to our listening audience, this book here is a book you have to read because this has been the most impactful and most influential book? I know it may be very difficult to find one book. You can, if you have to, share more books, but I'm just curious to know, what books do you find to be most impactful in your life?
Well, there are so many, as you said, and it is difficult to find one. So as I started thinking about this question, my mind went several different directions. One is a little bit controversial, so I'm not going to go there on this call. If anyone wants to hear controversial recommendation, reach out to me and I'll share it with you. But one that's actually very, very simple, but I just think it has a beautiful message throughout, is The Boy, the Fox, the Mole, and the Horse by Charles Mackesy. It's a simple book. It looks like a children's book, but it has messages for all of us, and you can listen to it on YouTube. It's about, I don't know, 20 minutes long or something, 30 minutes long maybe. But it's really, really got beautiful messages. It's beautifully illustrated, and it's just got great messages. I'll just give you a little bit of a teaser for it. Early in the book, the mole is asking the boy, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And the boy thinks about it for a minute. He says, "When I grow up, I want to be kind." So I thought that was a great message. And there's messages throughout the book. That's just a tiny little teaser out of the book. So what do you want to be when you grow up in the world? I want to be kind.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's definitely something that's food for thought for sure. And I'm definitely going to look into that. That's why I love that question, because I get so many great books from these type of interviews, and people lead me down these type of paths. And that's why I love doing what I do. So as we begin to bring this interview to a close, I just want to give you an opportunity to share any closing thoughts you may have, as well as any contact information for those who are watching and when saying to themselves, you're someone they want to connect with. Please share your contact information.
Thank you, Kate. Thanks for having me on here. Thanks for the questions. They're great questions. I know we're very, very aligned on the way we think about the world, and so I appreciate this opportunity. Ways to connect with me. So the business website is eprenz.com. I am active on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is probably the easiest and best way to really reach me. It's David Wagstaff, and if that doesn't find me right off, then use Eprenz or Entrepreneurs Network, and you'll be able to see it. Our LinkedIn group is Entrepreneurs Network equals Eprenz, and you can find us there as well. It's free to join, and we have 100 plus thousand members today. There maybe 104,000. So those are ways to connect with me. I have emails, but they're not really the best way. I get so many emails. I just mostly go through, several hundred in 15 minutes at the end of the day. So,
All right. Any closing thoughts you want to share? Wise words?
wise words. So I think the big thing is find out what excites you and delights you in the world. The same advice I was basically giving to the 24 to 26-year-old who was looking at his own journey and saying, maybe it isn't all I want at this point in life, wasn't fully fulfilled. So come up with a vision that's much bigger than yourself, something that may look impossible to achieve. In some ways, by creating these big, hairy, audacious goals, it does light us up. I get excited every day about getting up because I'm trying to make a difference in the world. And you know what? Whether I succeed in making a difference for 100,000 or not, that's not really the key point. Is the journey is amazingly rewarding. And every day I'm working with a team of people that I have the fortune of loving working with them. And I do think that making a difference in the world excites me and delights me. So when you find your mission, people will gravitate to you. I've had lots of people volunteer to work with us because they're excited by what we're doing. That's the kind of vision you want to have. People want to support your vision of what you're doing. And when you come up with your vision to do that, it will excite you as well and make it worth it every day. So do something that's bigger than yourself, making a difference in the world. That's my advice. So.
Excellent. Excellent. Again, well, thank you, David. You have been a wonderful guest. You've given some jewels. You brought a lot of positive energy to the conversation. And like I said, definitely looking forward to the infinite possibilities that we can go forward and build in the future. And listening audience, thank you for listening to another episode of King Connections podcast. We will be tweeting and sharing this information out later on for the replays for individuals who did not catch us live. So until we speak again, I want to wish everyone a blessed and productive remaining part of the day. Thank you.
Appreciation and gratitude.